We have already been impressed by pro wrestling and its scenes that can be worthy of cinema. As you can imagine, it is a universe where there are also tricks, stratagems, and other subtleties, so that everything goes perfectly without us noticing anything. It's a pleasure to meet you on the Wrestling Paradise to tell you the craziest WWE tricks. Are you ready to be shocked to learn how Braun Strowman was able to lift this ambulance? Do you want to know more about the secret communication techniques between wrestlers? Do you want to find out how Brock Lesnar and the Big Show managed to destroy the ring? And are you curious to learn how the Fiend could have been burned by Randy Orton? You have come to the right place, because in our video we will see several manufacturing secrets together behind the magic of wrestling, and they will amaze you. You are on the Wrestling Paradise, the craziest WWE tricks. Let's go. At the end of 2020, there was a memorable scene at the TLC show. On that day, Randy Orton faced the late Bray Wyatt, who was playing his Fiend character. It was a Firefly Inferno match in which you had to set your opponent on fire to win. One of the two men was going to burn, but as you might expect, everything was planned to protect the wrestlers. Visually, it was really impressive, with a moment when we could see the Fiend burning. It was also the end of the confrontation. The demon was on fire in the middle of the ring. First of all, when Bray was on fire, there was Stunchgle on him. It's a product that enables you to set yourself on fire without burning. Right after that, when the Fiend was lying down, Randy could be seen setting him on fire for good to win. At that very moment, there was a dummy dressed as the Fiend. Of course, by analyzing the entire match, we notice the secrets, and it is still very impressive. It is also one of the final appearances of this fascinating Fiend character, probably the most interesting in the WWE between 2019 and 2020. It's April 10th, 2017, and an impressive scene took place on Monday Night Raw, one of WWE's weekly shows. There was the monster Braun Strowman, who attacked Roman Reigns, with whom he had a rivalry at that time. The future tribal chief will be put on a stretcher to be taken to the hospital. But Strowman wasn't finished with him. He grabs the stretcher with Roman on it and throws it on the concrete a little lower. As if that wasn't enough, after Roman Reigns was put in the ambulance, Braun pulls out a superhuman feat for us. He overturns the vehicle with Roman inside. This was a moment that shocked the fans, but the company employees made sure to make it as safe as possible with a few little tricks. For example, when Braun swings the stretcher, Roman Reigns wasn't actually on it. It was a dummy. Looking closer, we realized Strowman and the cameraman's positions prevented us from seeing the top of the stretcher. Right after that, it was the magic of the editing. We switched to a new camera shot where Roman was on the ground, as if he had really fallen. As for the ambulance lifting, if we look closely, we can see two pieces of metal near the wheels after it had been overturned. By being even more attentive, we can guess a person who is getting out of the vehicle when Strowman begins the lifting. The secret of this feat is a hydraulic winch. First of all, Roman is inside the vehicle and Braun attacks him. Then the latter comes out and goes to the right with the cameraman to do his feat. Meanwhile, a technician helped Roman to detach and get out of the ambulance. Braun starts to lift it, and thanks to the hydraulic winch that holds it on the other side and the pieces of metal at the wheels, he can completely tip it over. It was clever, and it's part of these little tricks to do these memorable moments. In any case, unless you are a connoisseur or have seen the scene several times, we can hardly notice all that. They represent all the magic of wrestling. We go back to a time when there was a war between CM Punk and the WWE. The Chicago Kid considered that he was treated very badly by the company. In his eyes, they were not taking care of the health problems he had. Promises were not kept, and there were injustices that ended up making him walk out before finally being fired on his wedding day. At that moment, his return at the end of 2023 seemed unthinkable. It was just after the 2014 Royal Rumble that his first period in the Federation ended. As we notice, he was on the poster of the show. At that time, the Ultimate Warrior, this larger-than-life wrestler from the early 90s, made peace with the WWE. He came back to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and they were producing a documentary about him. We can notice a rather funny detail. In this documentary, which was broadcast at a time when the company was at war with CM Punk, we see a scene where there is the Royal Rumble 2014 poster. But if we pay attention, we see a post-it on Punk's head. In fact, we must understand that when there are real problems with a wrestler, the Federation no longer talks about him. They act as if he no longer exists. This little post-it was a way to hide CM Punk, to make the fans forget him. Despite everything, we can wonder what would have been different if we saw CM Punk's face in the background of an Ultimate Warrior documentary for a few seconds. Finally, we can wonder if it wasn't rather a subtle way of trolling the Chicago Kid. In pro wrestling, referees are very important to make sure that everything goes according to plan or to inform the people backstage about the wrestlers. It is their role to check if the superstars are in a condition to continue the match after a dangerous moment. They are really crucial. We could see another of their hidden responsibilities in 2006 at WrestleMania. Shawn Michaels was up against Vince McMahon. There will be a scene where the Heartbreak Kid was hitting the former boss with a ladder. Later, Michaels puts a trash can on him and puts him on a table, to then jump on him from the top of a ladder. It will be impressive, and there is actually a little trick. In this situation, Vince McMahon couldn't see what was going on around him because of the trash can. But it was important that he knew when he was going to have Shawn Michaels on him to prepare for it. If we look closely, we can see the referee tightening Vince's ankle just before HBK's jump. A similar situation took place in the 2013 edition, where The Undertaker was facing CM Punk. There was a moment when The Undertaker attacked Paul Heyman, CM Punk's manager at the time, just before turning, and the Chicago Kid jumped on him. Here too, they communicated secretly with each other so that everything would be fine. Just before CM Punk threw himself on The Undertaker, Paul Heyman squeezed the veteran's shoulder. It was a signal for him to know when to let go of Paul and head towards Punk. Everything is going very fast and we don't necessarily notice it live, but these kind of details enable them to offer a quality show. In June 2003, Brock Lesnar faced the Big Show on SmackDown. In this match, there was one of the most famous scenes in wrestling history. It was a clash of the Titans. In the end, Brock will give him a superplex from the ring pole. With the weight of the two men and the violence of the impact, the ring will break.
500-pound superplex!
It was a memorable scene. To achieve such a feat, there were of course some small techniques to make everything go well. You should know that it was the final match of the show. The man who was in charge of stunts in the WWE put airbags under the ring several hours before the start of the show. In a well-thought-out system, he inflated the airbags under the ring just as the camera was focused on Lesnar and Big Show. Thanks to this, the ring is several inches higher and much more unstable. The moment the two men hit the ring, the poles will fall. The airbags just had to be deflated and the ring collapses. Considering how much this scene impacted the fans, we can say that the stunt coordinator and the wrestlers did a masterclass. It's 2015 in the Road to the Night of Champions show. On that day, there will be a match between Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose and a mystery partner on the one hand, and the Wyatt family on the other. 10 days before that, Roman and Dean join forces with Jimmy Uso, Roman's cousin, for a match against the New Day. There was a rather original moment. Jimmy is going to get on the top rope and then the lights go out. A few seconds later, as if by magic, he is on the stage being strangled by Braun Strowman. With the mystical and supernatural side of the Wyatt family, it looked like Jimmy Uso had teleported. But the explanation behind this nice moment is Jey Uso, Jimmy's twin brother. The latter climbed on the top rope, and then at the moment when the arena was in the dark, he hid under the ring. It was Jey who was in Strowman's arms, trying to hide his face as much as possible. What made it possible to understand this secret was the piece of red fabric that Jimmy had on him, while Jey didn't have it. It's a pity that the twin brothers didn't think of everything, but it's still creative and original. We've all seen or heard about Mick Foley's fall during his Hell in a Cell match in 1998 against The Undertaker. It was a mind-blowing stunt, unheard of at that time. It could very well have killed him or disabled him for life. So even if it was super painful and superhuman, there was a little trick. The table on which Foley falls had been prepared to cushion his fall a little bit. Fortunately, he didn't fall on the ground, which would have been an absolute disaster. In 2016, Shane McMahon, Vince's son, had another unforgettable fall. Still from the top of the Hell in a Cell cage and facing The Undertaker, he did an impressive jump on a table. As we suspect, Vince would never have allowed this if measures had not been taken to secure everything. In reality, there was an air cushion under the table. If we look closely, we can even see it deflating after his jump. It was a trick to cushion the fall, but it was still super brave and painful, since Shane McMahon literally blew up his belly button on that day. It is better not to imagine what would have happened if he landed badly, or if he had fallen on the ground. One element that we often see in the WWE is the ladders. Of course, there is the Money in the Bank ladder match where the wrestlers must climb on it and unhook the briefcase. Obviously, it was also used to hit or to perform spectacular stunts. At WrestleMania 33, for example, we saw Jeff Hardy jumping on Cesaro, who was on a ladder. Seeing this, we are necessarily worried about the health of wrestlers who destroy their bodies. We wonder how they can do all this safely. First, what you need to know is that they are less solid than normal ladders. By placing it correctly and jumping precisely on its center, it will break more simply. But it can also happen that they are faked. For example, the day Sheamus threw Sin Cara on it, we could see some paint towards the middle of the ladder. So the ladder was deliberately sabotaged to make sure it breaks when Sin Cara falls on it. Of course, it remains very impressive and painful for the wrestlers. In pro wrestling, there are good guys and bad guys. In theory, fans are supposed to encourage the babyfaces and hate the heels, but it's impossible to control the reactions of the fans, while the WWE rather like them to react the way they want. With this in mind, the Federation doesn't hesitate to make it seem that a wrestler is loved, to make fans want to love him too. That's what they do with signs. In the crowd, we often see fans holding signs to the glory of a superstar, or on the contrary, making fun of them. Some can also be related to the fan himself or just absurd. As you can imagine, seeing close-up signs praising a wrestler on television can influence viewers. It's just human. We see that a lot of fans like a wrestler, so we think we should like him too. The WWE understood UT very well. They create signs themselves that they will put in the crowd with accomplice fans to influence opinion. For example, a few years ago, there was a sign that called for the creation of the Women's Team Championship. A few weeks later, it was born. It also makes it look like the company is listening to the fans. Anyway, this is an area that seems important for the company, so let's look closely to the signs we can see in the shows. They may indicate the Federation's projects for the following months. There is another trick that wrestlers like to use. We had an illustration of it on SmackDown. It's July 2019 and Dolph Ziggler was facing Finn Balor. There was a moment when Dolph got kicked and we could see what looked like a tooth flying out of his mouth.
Kick right to the face, down.
It's impressive. We tell ourselves that the kick was really hard, that we are witnessing an intense fight in which the two men are going at it. But in reality, it was not a tooth. To give this illusion, wrestlers can either spit at the appropriate moment or have a chewing gum. In Dolph Ziggler's case, he had one during his entrance. At the moment of the kick, he spits it out, and it feels like he lost a tooth, but not at all. These are the kind of small, intelligent details that help to be invested in a match and to believe in the story that is being told. And that was it for these crazy wrestling tricks. Knowing all this, we were able to realize how it is a universe that is just like cinema or magic. When we watch it, we are on board, and we don't always see all the secrets that create this great illusion. It's really crazy to imagine all the things they have to think about, and we can respect that. It makes me offer you a debate in your opinion. Is it normal for WWE to have signs put up in the crowd? Come and give your opinion. It will be exciting to exchange our points of view in the comments. We can say that pro wrestling really is a fascinating world. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay on the Paradise of Wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. What?